I use the analogy that LinkedIn is kind of like a Ferrari, and if you're doing very, very basic searches, that's like leaving it in the garage or maybe taking it to go grocery shopping, and that's doing yourself a disservice because you're paying for something, you should use it. You buy a car, you should drive it, and you shouldn't just drive it soft, you should drive it hard. Or some people like to say, drive it like you stole it. The fact that you have access to LinkedIn Recruiter is great, but that's not your competitive advantage because you're all looking around at other people that are using the same tool, and if you're looking for the same people, what's your competitive advantage? Your competitive advantage is kind of like car racing. I don't follow car racing, but I know in like NASCAR, all the cars are the same spec. So it's a good analogy for you guys, right? You all have the same spec car. What's the difference? It's the driver and what you do with it. So that's what you have to bring to it. Finding people is not the problem. It's never been the problem. Finding some people is not the issue. And hopefully you don't take this the wrong way, but finding easy to find people is nothing special. You shouldn't feel good about that. Anybody in this room that puts in keywords in LinkedIn will get results. But what's the difference between everybody's result sets? Most people don't think about that. Some people find the better candidates, some people find more candidates, some people get a lot of false positives. But what you're really looking for is your hiring manager wants you to find the needle in the haystack. Your goal is to become kind of like a magnet to pull out all the needles in the haystack. But what I like to point out is that it's a good problem to have. As LinkedIn gets bigger, I want you to realize what's happening is the haystack gets bigger. And that doesn't make it any easier to find the right people. It actually makes it a little tougher. More data, the better. But that means that your complementary ability to be able to slice and dice the data becomes that much more important. That's your competitive advantage. It's how you search it. With LinkedIn Recruiter, you have 2,000 characters that you can use for your keywords, title, company, and school field. And just to show you what 2,000 characters looks like, that's what 2,000 characters looks like. So if you wanted to look at and target 100 companies, about 100, give or take the length of the company name and how many words are in each company name, that's about 100. I could actually run a search and target 100 companies. Anybody that's either worked for one of those companies in the past or more than one of them, because it's an or statement. So you can do this kind of stuff. You do it once, guess what you do with it at that point? You save it. You never do it again. You run the search, you mouse over the number, and it actually shows you, hey, I actually ran that search and I did the work for you. So what else can you do with a lot of characters, right? So let's say you have a manager that says, I don't need a lot of experience, but I want a top student. And then you start thinking conceptually, well, what could a top student look like? What could they potentially say on their profile? Well, perhaps they're going to mention their GPA. In this case, I targeted 3.5 or higher. I know some schools have different scales, but the point is there's actually less than 2,000 characters here, so you can do a lot more. So you can actually target people that talk about having a high GPA because you can use or and because you have a lot of characters to use. So please use it. If it's easier for you to find, you have done nothing special, it's child's play. I just want to rattle your cage a little bit. It's the low-hanging fruit analogy. If you think of LinkedIn as a tree of talent, the low-hanging fruit is put in the basic keywords, find the people ranked at the top, that's what you all look at, and that's the low-hanging fruit. You walk around, you pluck them, and they're good people. Many of them are going to be good people. But if you think of a tree, what's left on the rest of the tree? We know that there's actually volumetrically more fruit at the top of the tree that you can't reach with your hand. So you have to bust out a ladder. What most people do though is they don't realize that, wow, I'm only skimming the easy to find people, and that's what everybody in this room, if you were all looking for the same type of person, if you ran all the same basic searches, your basic title, your basic keywords, you'd all find generally the same people. You would also exclude the same people. You would also bury some of those people beyond the 1,000 results that you can't see. So ask yourself these tough questions always. These are really the big takeaways. When I'm searching LinkedIn, am I finding the best people or am I finding the most complete profiles? Am I finding the most accessible profiles? Does that mean they're the best people? I love to use the iceberg analogy because it's perfect. I estimate that most people when they search LinkedIn, they actually find maybe 20, maybe, if I'm being generous, 30% of the available results, which is again, doing yourself a disservice when you have access to LinkedIn. Your goal should be to find every good person in LinkedIn. And some of those people aren't easy to find. There are people that have the experience you need, but they don't see the keyword you think they should say on their profile. So as soon as you type that keyword, they are excluded, and you don't know that. Now you know that. Now you're going to be like me, and you're almost driven to insanity to think like, wow, I just ran a search, and I probably found some good people, but I probably excluded like 3 times as many people, so how do I go back and get them? Some profiles are keyword poor, but they're fantastic people. They didn't create their profile. It's saying, man, there's going to be some recruiter out there that's going to want to find me. Some people don't join LinkedIn for that. They join it just for the social networking. Please appreciate that. That means your strategy has to be different to get those people. Keep in mind that every search you run includes qualified people and excludes qualified people. Qualified people that don't say the terms that you assume they should. So I'm going to run through this real quick. One of the ways that you can tap into the hidden talent pools of people that you can't find is then realize that, wow, if there's 13 different ways of expressing a particular skill or a title, you have to think of those 13 ways. Because if you only use 5 of the 13, you are actually excluding the other people that don't say those terms. And then you have to think of when you have user-generated content, people are going to put in titles of, company names. And if you work at PwC, I love to use them as an example. It's not always the ones that have different permutations, but those are real numbers from LinkedIn globally. So if you're looking for people that have worked for one of those companies, you actually have to think of all the different ways somebody could put that on their profile, because you could be missing thousands or tens of thousands of people. But the problem goes back to where I mentioned before, my headstone, every search works. If you type in 2 of those, you're like, man, I got some results. The point is, you need to now be disturbed and know that you also excluded some people, right? They're the ghosts of LinkedIn, the dark matter. Citi, Citibank, Citigroup, trust me. You do a little research and you'll find there's a lot of different ways to say a lot of the companies that you may be targeting talent from. This is just a real quick one. I love to show this one off. I'll never get tired of it. Even if you don't do IT, hopefully you can appreciate it. If I'm looking for a Java developer, probably the most assumed thing that anyone's going to think, well, a Java developer is going to say Java because that's what they do, right? That's their language. It's kind of weird to be a software engineer and not talk about the language you develop in. But here's proof that there's thousands of people that don't actually say their primary development language. They give you a hint. They're talking about a particular development framework, but not Java. So closing out, my favorite feature of LinkedIn Recruiter is the all groups. They're brilliant. It's the best thing. And some people leave these conferences and go back and like, where is it? I can't find it. And I'll tell you why you can't find it, because when you do your initial search, it's actually not there. You have to run the search, and then it becomes a refinement. Now, what's beautiful about this is I wanted to show you on the, and again, this doesn't just work for accountants and IT, it works for everything. It's your goal to take the theory behind what I'm showing you and apply it to what you use. So I said, okay, you can't mention that you're certified or chartered anywhere in your profile, but you have to have a current title of accountant. But then I'll start typing in chartered accountant groups. And that's what I did. In the bottom, you'll be able to type in the names. And so I check marked all those ones. So there's hundreds of people. There's 831 people in a CGA group that don't say that they're chartered anywhere in their profile. Same thing on software engineering, just to show you it works that way too. I can say, guess what? Don't mention any development framework for Java or .NET. But guess what? They're in Java and .NET groups. So I love the predictive power of groups.